Hi everyone, hope you're doing okay. This video is just to show you your new and final sketchbook assignment, which is watercolor painting. I really like watercolor painting actually. I find it really fun and relaxing, and it's often a class that people can take on their own time. You can find a lot of watercolor classes around the city if that's something you're interested in learning more about, and there are lots of tutorials online as well. But I just thought I'd give you a quick video on how to do this assignment in particular. So if you're following along either in your booklet or on Google Classroom, you're going to go to your sketchbook assignment number 3, which is watercolor. And I really want you to read through and look at all the examples that the different artists have done that I posted there. So I'm just trying to get in this book. It's really best if you can look at it on Google Classroom because it'll be in color, and watercolor is a lot better if it's in color. So if you're following along in your booklet, really look at all the different, sorry, something weird happened there. Look at all the different examples of all the different artists, because that's going to give you some really good ideas, but also feel free to look online. So the first thing that it asks you to do is you're going to practice some basic watercolor techniques. And if you go to this page or this part of the assignment on the slide, it has 7 basic watercolor techniques. So what you're going to need to do, you're going to need to divide your page. I divided mine into 8, and then you'll have a free space that you can use for testing things out. And Lizzie's done the same thing too. She's been a great help. And you're going to write all the different ones in 7 of the squares. So we've got a wash, which I'll show you how to do, dry brush, salt, crayon resist, blot, and wet and wet, and tape masking. So the first one that you're going to do is a wash. I gave you a couple. You should have a set of paints like this, kind of like this, in your package that I sent you. And for doing a wash, it's best to use the flat brush that I sent along with you. So I think I gave you a flat brush. If I didn't, just use the biggest brush that I sent you. And you're gonna get it wet with some water, and you're gonna choose a color, any color you want. And a wash is just basically, you're going back and forth. So you're just going straight across. It's just a flat wash. If you want to make it going from darker to lighter, you can do that too. You can start off darker, and you see how it kind of goes lighter, and just straight across. So that's a wash, and it's often used for background. So if you want to do a background in your artwork, this is a great way to do it. And then you would let this dry, and then you could do other things. But you could also leave it wet, because you'll see what happens, how it's different when you paint on a wet surface as opposed to a dry surface. So here's wet, and you can see how it's kind of running down, which is kind of a neat effect, which we're going to look at when we do the wet and wet in a minute. So that's your wash, just a flat kind of background thing. Okay? And then the next one that you're going to do is you're going to use a dry brush technique. So you know how on my wash, I had quite a bit of water on there. So this next one, you're going to make your brush a bit drier. You're not going to get you have to get water on your paints first. Anyways, yeah, do you have a question?
No, you already answered it.
Okay. And just to get the paint going. But what you might want to do is, and here's another thing you're going to need. You're going to need some paper towel or some Kleenex or a rag to blot your brush off on. But now my brush is dry, and I'm going to stick it back in the paint that I just got wet. So I got my blue paint a little bit wet first, and now I'm sticking my brush back in the blue paint. But you're going to see how when I use you're going to see how it's a different texture. See how it looks a little bit scraggly. It's not so smooth. It's dry. So there's not a lot of water when you're using dry brush. And artists sometimes use this. Sometimes when they're making like grass, or if you want just like a different kind of texture. So just experiment. with this technique. And if you find that there's not enough water at all, because you do need some water for the paint, you can just get it wet again and then just dry your brush off again and then go back and do it again. But you can see when I start here, it's a different. So if you want to try and like wipe it off there a bit first in your free square before you go and do it there, you can do that as well. Okay. So that's dry brush.
Is the next one salt?
The next one is using salt. So I might have to do this video in 2 parts because it might be a pretty long video. So I'll do the salt one. Lizzie, can you get the salt from the kitchen, like the salt shaker? I'm not exactly sure what it is. We'll look for it. So you will need some salt. So hopefully you have some salt at home that you can use for this. And what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the wash. I'm just going to add, maybe I'll use green this time. I'm just going to do a wash in the, I don't know, ask Dad. The salt is not on the table. I don't know what the salt is.
Oh, I found it.
Okay.
It was on the kitchen table.
It's on the kitchen table. So I'm just doing a wash again. And then maybe I'll take a little bit more and I'll do some like little blots or something there. Maybe I want to use a little bit more. I might want to use a different paintbrush now. So I might want to use a slightly bigger round paintbrush instead of the flat one. And maybe I'll use like, what's good with green? Yellow,
Maybe you
blue.
like that.
Oh, maybe this blue would be good with
Oh.
the green. This is kind of like a cooler blue, more like phthalo blue, I think. So I'm just going to add some little drops here. And now the thing to remember about salt, your paper has to be wet for this to work. The salt won't work unless your paper is wet. So you may remember doing this, and I like to put some in my hand, and then I like to just sprinkle it on. But you'll see, hopefully, where I sprinkled on there. So you can see where I sprinkled the salt. It's starting to, the salt is absorbing the water, and it's starting to create a pretty cool effect. So this is, it almost looks like stars. So if you want to do like a background that looks like stars, you could do that. Yes, Lizzie.
I already did one, remember?
You did do one like
put it
this.
on.
Yeah, I remember you
put it
did
on
that.
the
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah, that's right.
Like with my grandma and grandpa when I was little.
Oh, yeah, that's very cool. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video here, and then I'm going to do the last 4 in a second video so that the videos aren't too long. And I'll see you back in a couple seconds. Okay.